Okay, today we don't know
Sorry, I missed it. Sorry.
It's okay, Lakshmi. I was wondering whether to call you Lakshmi or Parvati.
I'm fine with Lakshmi because it is official.
Okay.
Though my favorite name is other.
Okay, Lakshmi. All right. So creating performance standards. What does this slide talk about? The following are some examples of performance standards which can be used for active monitoring. Okay. Now, what we spoke about as active monitoring methods, whether it is inspection or audit or survey, sampling, any of these methods you use to gather some data, isn't it? Some examples are given here about what you can monitor. Using the inspection method, using the survey method, what are you going to monitor? Somebody's mic is on. Please help me to mute yourself. Pradeep. Pradeep, I've muted you. One more mic is on. Sarang. Okay. Sarang, you need to mute yourself. I'm not able to mute you. Now I can mute you. Okay. I think it's just joining. So I was saying that, inspection or audit or survey, these are all methods. Methods using what are you going to monitor? So some examples are given here. We can monitor health and safety training. Okay, so whether it has been completed as per the agreed training calendar. So you're able to see whether you have accepted what you have accepted to do in the training calendar has been completed. So you tell me, what methods can you use to check whether training has been completed or the progress of the training against the training calendar? What method, safety audit, inspection, survey, sampling, any of those you can use to do this? What method will you use to check whether training is going according to the training calendar? Feedback. Okay, feedback funny, but I'm asking which method of active monitoring are you going to use? We spoke about some 5 or 6 active monitoring methods, isn't it? Which one are you going to use? Sampling. Okay, funny. Surveys. Okay. Okay. All right. Safety tour. Akash. Can you tour the training records, Akash? All right. Funny. Can you unmute yourself and explain what is safety sampling?
I was not there in yesterday's session, but still I'll try to explain.
No, we've not touched it yet.
Okay. So safety sampling is like doing a random check of the things that we are performing. Like in case if we have given some safety trainings, we'll do some random checking, saying that how many topics have been cleared, whether people have understood or not. We'll pick up some samples and check whether people have understood or the particular trainings have been imparted. So this is how sampling can be done.
Okay, very good, Funny. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so now tell me, you understand what is safety sampling, but let me first talk about inspection, and then you will understand sampling much better. Okay. Of course, you can inspect training records also. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. What is safety inspection? It means a regular scheduled activity with comparison to accepted performance standards. You're doing something regularly, like what? You can say we are doing a housekeeping inspection regularly. All right. It could also be a scheduled one, meaning every month on this particular date, we'll do this particular inspection of probably machinery maintenance. All right. So that's a scheduled one. Also, what are we doing in the safety inspection? We are comparing our accepted performance standard with the current performance standard. Where have we accepted, or in what way, or in what stage of planning or implementation have we accepted that we will meet certain standards? If you want, I can repeat that question. In what process of planning or implementation have we mentioned what is the standard that we should maintain in terms of machinery maintenance or housekeeping, etc.? Or even how an activity needs to be performed. Okay, there's an answer. Let's see. Weekly, monthly, annually. Okay, maybe I didn't ask my question clearly. Let me repeat that. In what particular process in the planning stage or in the implementation stage have we mentioned that this particular activity has to be done in this way? It has to meet these standards. Lakshmi, in the risk assessment, are we writing, procedures? I already gave out the answer. Swapnil got it. Okay, correct. So in the SOP, when you're developing a safe system of work, that's when you're accepting some standard. This is how it has to be. The work has to be completed in this fashion, right? So, for example, housekeeping. These are certain methods we have to follow. Machinery maintenance. These are certain methods we have to follow. This particular activity. This is the way it needs to be done. So you have already accepted a performance standard when you develop the SOP. Of course, in the risk assessment stage, you would have mentioned what controls are necessary and how that activity has to be performed is when you develop the safe system of work. Now, in inspection, what are you doing? You're checking if what you have written in the safe system of work, the accepted standard, and you're comparing that accepted standard and what is going on right now. Okay. For which you'll be using this observation method or interviewing method or reviewing documents, etc. For maintenance checklist, maybe yeah, no doubt about it. Okay, so this is safety inspection. Now tell me, in your book, is there a short definition of what is safety inspection? Is there any mention about what is safety inspection? And then there is a detailed safety inspection. This is audit explanation. Funny says yes. Funny, tell us the page number. Funny. Okay, good. 70. You can refer that. Of course, in your OB, they're never going to ask you the definition of safety inspection, but it's good to know. Okay. All right. So, by using safety inspection method, can we review the records of training and see if the training is going as per the training calendar? I'm sure you'll agree. Yes. Okay. This is one method. Now, if I don't have the time to inspect every piece of data or every record, I don't have the time to do an inspection of that, or I want to come to a quick conclusion. Safety inspection, I'll have to look at every data point, right? But I don't have the time, or I want to come to a quick conclusion. That's when you have the safety sampling method. Now, what is safety sampling? While in inspection, you're checking everything. Here in sampling, you're taking a representative sample. For example, if you have some 1,000 fire extinguishers in your workplace, all right, should you inspect every equipment, meaning every fire extinguisher? Yes, you have to inspect every fire extinguisher. Somebody's mic is on, yeah, please mute yourself. All right, you have to inspect every fire extinguisher. But today, you're doing a sampling method. So what are you doing? Out of the 1,000 fire extinguishers in your workplace, you're probably picking up 100. Right? Statistically, some 10% you're picking up. All right. So, and that 10%, you're doing a thorough check. Now, in that 10%, in that 100 fire extinguishers, if you see the pin is missing, the pressure gauge is showing that it is low, the body of the fire extinguisher is all rusted and everything. Many fire extinguishers are weighing less than what it is supposed to be, right? So, what does this indicate to you? This result, what does it tell you? There are some system deviation. Okay, okay. What else? Specifically, poor implementation. Okay. All right. I'll put answer in your mouth. Okay. This 100 is in this condition, isn't it? What does this tell you about the other 900 that you have not checked? Maybe in the same condition. Okay, Vasu. Good. All right. So if quickly you're able to do a check of the 100, which tells you that the condition is poor, not poor, well maintained. This may also give you an indication of what the other 900 is like, right? So now think and tell me, do you think safety auditors also employ safety sampling method? Auditors, do they also employ safety sampling method? Yeah, everybody agrees. Okay, good. So what is safety sampling? It's a technique of monitoring compliance with a particular workplace standard. So you're taking a particular workplace standard. How are you doing that? How are you monitoring that standard? By looking at a representative sample only. Yeah, we are not talking about whether it's random or not. We are taking talk. Yeah, it should be random, definitely. But we're talking about not the entire population or all the data points. We're only picking up a sample. All right. That sample, the condition of the sample can tell you what the condition of the rest of the population is or rest of the data points are. Okay. Now let's go to the slide. So that, the thing about health and safety training, you can either look at every record, but that would be too cumbersome. So you can take a sample method also. All right, next is housekeeping can be monitored by dividing the organization into various zones and comparing each zone against a set checklist, right? So we know, somebody was also talking in chat that it's useful to use a checklist when you're doing inspections. We'll talk a little later about what is checklist and all that. But housekeeping can be monitored by, again, doing a safety inspection. It can be a thorough inspection also, or you can do a sample, whichever you like. Checking the quality and the number of risk assessments. Okay, checking the quality and number of risk assessments. What method are you going to use here? Can you once again use safety inspection and safety sampling method? Yeah, Kati says inspection can be done. All right. Checking whether safety inspections are happening as per the schedule. Okay, so inspect the inspection. All right. So you can do that as a sampling method. Saran is giving an example, inspection of high risk activities. Okay, you can do that too. Whether workers are undergoing medical surveillance as per the schedule. Okay, this again you can do as a safety sampling. All right, so here are some examples of standards which you can monitor using any of those methods. Of course, not all will be applicable, but you can think of safety sampling or safety inspection. I'll ask you another question. If you want to know what are the noise levels in the workplace? Okay, you want to know what are the noise levels in the workplace. Which method of of active monitoring can you use? Somebody saying surveillance. Okay, inspection, sampling, sound meter. Sarang, unmute yourself and speak to me.
Actually, the sound level, if you want to inspect, then we must have to have the meter with us at the peak hours, so that we can check the sound level and whether it is in the decibel, in the what to say, the safe decibel levels or not. So in that way we can, and what safety PPs are and other engineering controls they have done, we have to inspect in that way.
Beautiful, Sarang. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay, so here is a method called safety survey. So what are we doing in safety survey? You're taking one aspect. Okay, in inspection, you could probably inspect anything and everything under the sun. You can inspect people's behavior, you can inspect whether procedures are being followed, you can inspect how the plant and equipment is being maintained. You can also inspect the premises. Okay, these are called the 4 P's. What are these 4 P's? Plant, premises, people, and procedures. Any of these things can be inspected. But I want to now look at only one aspect that is bothering me, which is noise. All right. So I would have to do a detailed survey about the noise levels in the workplace, meaning the various areas of the work site at various times, and also when various activities are taking place. Right. So you would need a sound engineer or a hygienist who will, using the equipments like we will talk later about in the noise chapter, there are integrated sound level meters, dosimeters, etc. Using these equipments, he would have to do a detailed survey about what are the noise levels in the work site at various places at various intervals of time and while various activities are taking place. Sometimes it's possible that one person is exposed to a high level of work noise, high level of noise in the workplace, whereas others are not. Right? There are some people who move about in the workplace. Because of their movement to various areas of the site, he may be exposed to more noise. So this also should come in the safety survey. All right. So what are we doing in safety survey? You're taking up one issue which is bothering you, and you're doing a detailed survey of that. Okay, so that is called a safety survey. We can say safety survey is a detailed examination of one particular issue or topic. All right, like the noise survey you can do. For example, organizations do employee satisfaction survey. That can also be a survey. When we deal with chemicals in the workplace, there may be a high quantity of dust exposure or gas or vapor exposure, mist exposure, isn't it? So you may be using some equipment like monitoring devices you'll be using to monitor the hazardous substances in the air, whether it is dust or gas or vapor, whatever it may be. You're using monitoring devices to measure the quantity of that gas or vapor or dust. So this is also a survey. All right. Vasu says, gives a nice example. Illumination survey. Right. Okay. So we've spoken about safety inspection, safety sampling, and safety survey also we spoke about. Once the performance standards are set, then we can go about systematically checking them. So this performance standard, at what stage are you setting? For example, in my workplace, noise levels should not exceed 85 decibels. At what stage of my, I don't want to give away the answer. At what stage am I setting these kind of, Arun says planning stage. Particularly if you had to use ISO 45001 standard, where are we setting this? If you are implementing ISO 45001, which clause of 45001 requires you to set this? Clause 6 is planning. In planning, are we setting objectives? Correct? Okay, if you turn to, in my book, it's 18. For you, probably it's 19 or 20. Okay, Sarah, thank you. In the leadership and worker participation, it becomes the responsibility of the leadership to develop a health and safety policy, isn't it? While setting the policy, while setting the policy, are they also setting objectives and targets? Yeah, okay. So at that stage, you may be setting objectives and targets. Now, you have set an objective that you should not allow your workers to be exposed to more than 85 decibels of noise. You may have put some control measures for that. You would have done the risk assessment. You would have put control measures for that. Now, what are you doing? You're checking, or rather, you're measuring your performance, for which you're using some equipments to do the survey and find out what are the noise levels. If the noise levels continue to be, say, about 85 decibels, all right, the hygienist has identified that the noise levels on an average is about 90 decibels. You had planned for 85 decibels, but right now, when you're evaluating the performance, it shows that it is still at 90 decibels. So what are you going to do? Take some corrective action, right? So that will be part of ACT, where you're going to take some corrective action, okay, or improvement also. So that's what this means. Once the performance standards are set, then we can go about systematically checking them. Where improvements are required, then you're going to take some corrective action. Okay, let's see. Safety inspection involves straightforward observation of a workplace and or the activities or equipment within it. A safety inspection is usually carried out by a manager, employee representative, safety advisor, and is often aided by the use of a checklist. Do you remember who an employee representative is? Who's an employee representative? Also called as? No, he's not the safety engineer. Yeah, correct, Arun. He's selected by other employees to represent them to the management with respect to safety matters. Correct, son. Correct. Rahul also says he's called the safety representative. He may be a safety committee member, but every safety committee member is not a worker representative. Okay. All right. So he's a worker himself who's been selected or elected by other workers. What has he been selected for? To represent anything that the worker wants to communicate to the employer or the management. It can go through the employee representative. Likewise, when the management wants to consult with the workers, it may not be practicable to bring everybody together, all the workers together and do the consultation. So management can consult through this safety representative. All right. So don't confuse the safety representative with a safety engineer or safety manager from the safety department. No. We are talking about a safety representative who's a worker himself. Okay, let's continue. Safety inspection also is a regular scheduled activity with the aim of identifying hazards and assessing the use and effectiveness of control measures. Okay. Routine inspection. It can be a routine inspection, something that we keep on doing, like housekeeping inspection, something that happens routinely. Statutory inspection. Statutory means it's a legal requirement. So the law says every 12 months you need to inspect, get your lifting equipments inspected by a third party inspector. Right? So that's a legal requirement. So it becomes a statutory inspection. Slide is not changing. Oh, hold on. Let me stop. Please start. Vasu, your speaker is on, yeah. Okay, are you able to see now? Okay. All right. Periodic inspections, probably your manufacturer might tell you to do maintenance and therefore also inspection of your equipments at a certain frequency or after a certain period, right? So that can be a periodic inspection. Every 3 months we do this, something like that. Pre-use checks are okay, Vasu, no problem. Pre-use checks, these are done by the user himself. If you can also call it a pre-start check. Like a crane operator would probably go around inspecting his crane before starting, right? In fact, a pilot would inspect his aircraft, might go around inspecting the aircraft before starting. These are certain checks that are done. It will not be a detailed check, okay? It's more a visual check, we can say. So these are called as pre-start checks or pre-use checks. Okay, so that's what is given here in the next slide. Types of safety inspections. Who would like to read it? Okay, Vasu, go ahead. Vasu, did you volunteer to read? Okay, looks like not. Anybody else wants to read the slide?
Shall I read?
Yes, please, Lakshmi.
Types of safety inspections. Routine inspection to determine if general standards of health and safety are acceptable or if corrective action is necessary. Example, quarterly housekeeping inspection in an office. Second one, statutory inspection by a competent person to fulfill a legal requirement. Example, the annual thorough examination of an item of lifting equipment. Third one, periodic inspection. Periodic inspection of a plant and machinery as a part of plant maintenance program. Example, a mechanic inspects the brake on a lorry or on regular basis to ensure they are not excessively worn.
Worn out.
Pre-use checks carried out by workers before they use certain items of plant and machinery. Example, the startup checks carried out by a forklift truck driver.
Okay, thank you, Lakshmi. And we spoke about these 4 P's. You can read this slide also, Lakshmi, for me, please.
Carrying out systematic inspections focus on 4 P's: plant, machinery, vehicles and inspections and examinations, premises, workplace access, egress, people, customs and practices, behavior, procedures, method, statement, SOP, permit to work, etc. Routine inspections help to make sure that standards and policies are being implemented, controls are working.
Okay, thank you. So this slide says that you can inspect anything. Anything meaning any of these 4. Okay, if you think about it, everything in your workplace will fall into any of these 4. Okay. Some examples of these 4 P's. Lakshmi, please read this as well.
4 P's of inspections. Examples: a daily inspection plant may be carried out for carried out of the fork lift trucks before start of the operation each day by operator. Second, supervisors can check the behavior of the people once every week or fortnight. There would be random check of the procedures used maybe once in every week. Fourth, a weekly round may be carried out to ensure that the normal entrances and exits and the fire exit premises are free of any hindrances and hazards.
Okay, thank you. This fourth point, it's talking about weekly round. We are talking about a walk around, all right? Round as in not something which is round, but we're talking about a walk around, which is an informal term for safety tours, all right? What's a safety tour? This is done by a group of people. There could be workers from that particular area, part of this team. There could be managers from that location. There could even be somebody very senior participating in that team. All right, definitely somebody from the safety department. A worker representative also can be part of this team. So, what is the idea? To go around the workplace and looking at points of interest. For example, if the safety team, tour team, want to know how housekeeping is being maintained, all right, while they're conducting the tour, how people are behaving. This also gives them an opportunity to talk to people, all right, to get the views from the workers directly. Also remember, when such a safety tour is being conducted and somebody very senior is part of the safety tour, all right, and do you think this shows the commitment of the management for safety? When somebody senior is participating in this kind of a walk around or safety tour, is it showing their commitment? Yeah. So one of the purposes, yeah, thank you. One of the purposes of conducting safety tour is also to show the commitment of the management. They are seen on the floor. All right, that is very important. If you remember, we spoke about visible leadership, right? So visible, the commitment from the management should be made visible for workers. And one way to do it is them participating in safety tours. Who will conduct the inspection? Did we speak about who conducts risk assessments? A competent person or an incompetent person? A competent person, right? So likewise, yeah, great. Thank you. Likewise, inspection should also be conducted by competent people only. So what is the competence required for somebody conducting the safety inspection? We can call him an inspector also. Person should have some training on how to conduct inspections. He should also have training in that particular he should have the knowledge especially and experience in that particular activity that he's inspecting or that particular aspect of standard that he's inspecting. Certification to a specific standard will be helpful. Understanding of the workplace health and safety principles, willingness to ask questions. He should also be impartial and objective in his approach, even in a familiar area. Impartial, I think you can understand. What does that word objective mean? What is the word objective? It's a very important characteristic that an inspector should have, even an auditor for that purpose. Okay, here, this objective does not mean that objective and target, aim, that kind of objective. That's not what is meant here. The inspector should be objective. All right, that does not mean that he's going to set a target, right? So what do we mean by objective here? I can give you a clue. It's opposite of subjective. Okay, I'll ask you this question. Do you want your inspector or auditor, Rashid says, no. Okay, let's listen to my question and then you'll be able to answer better. Do you want your inspector or auditor to give you the result of the inspection and audit as it is, or do you want him to change the findings and give you? as it is. Okay, everybody agrees, right? So what does that mean? It means to say that the auditor or the inspector should not allow his personal feelings to interfere with the result of the inspection, isn't it? So you want him to be objective here. He should use his reasoned judgment, all right, and say what is as it is. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're the manager of that particular location. You're also doing the inspection yourself, all right? When you do the inspection, you see some trailing cables here and there, some oil spillages here and there, okay? And you're also seeing that the welfare facility that is provided is too far for the employees to access, all right? You're like this. You see all this in your inspection. But because it's your own area of workplace, you're thinking, cables, what else to do with the cables? I don't have the means right now to do anything about these trailing cables. So in the checklist, you're putting a tick mark saying everything is okay. No trailing cables on the floor. All right. And then you're looking at the welfare facility available. That's too far to access. So people are eating and having their refreshment, etc., in that location where they're doing the work, where main work activities are taking place. In your checklist, you're putting a tick, welfare facilities are available. All right. So what are you doing? You think that it's not possible to bring a welfare facility close enough for people to access because we don't have the money or something like that right now. It's not possible to do all this, you're thinking. So your thinking is now tweaking the result of the inspection, isn't it? You're not telling what is as it is. Rather, you're allowing your personal feelings to interfere with the report, right? So this is called subjective. Do you want something like this, or do you want somebody to say what is as it is? Right? I'm sure you're agreeing that you want somebody to say as. So such a person is called as objective. No, it's not realistic. Okay. Realistic means something else. In fact, when the inspector puts a tick mark on the checklist saying it is okay, then he may be even realistic, but it's actually not okay. What is realistic? Right now, this is all I can do. So he's being realistic and saying it is okay, but that is not being objective. In fact, it is being subjective, where he's allowing his personal feelings to interfere with the report findings. The inspection findings. All right. So objective is not allowing your personal feelings to interfere. That's what we mean by objective. Kaleem says not biased. Biased also has a different meaning. Biased is where I'm leaning towards somebody. For example, if I'm an inspector and I'm getting the money from the management, they may say, don't point out certain things in your report. So I'm biased towards the management and saying everything is okay. Right? So that is biased. Also, we can say impartial. Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next slide. All right, this is interesting because these are some factors you're going to consider when deciding on what should be the frequency of inspection. Frequency, meaning in how many days am I going to repeat this inspection? Okay, so these are some factors you may want to consider when deciding on what should be the frequency of inspection. You have this in your book, I think. Factors to be taken into account while determining the frequency of inspection. Probably in page number 70 or 71 in your book. There's a picture of the checklist and one big red tick mark above that. Okay, 71. Thank you. So what does this say? You'd first have to consider, not first, but you'd have to consider the statutory requirements. What does that mean? If the law says it has to be done once in 6 months, then you'll have to get it done once in 6 months, right? So that's a factor to consider. Hazard and the risk profile of the organization. If the risk is high, you may want to do the inspection much more frequently, right? So that's a factor that you would want to consider. How well the process is established, especially when it's a new process, you would want to inspect it more frequently. Manufacturer's recommendation, it will tell you what should be the periodicity of the inspection or frequency. Risk assessment may also suggest that this is the frequency of inspection. I'll ask you a question. In your risk assessment, you may have identified the control measures that are already implemented. You would also be identifying in your risk assessment what further controls are required, right? Always remember, when you are recommending that further controls be implemented, you should also write the monitoring method, meaning how are you going to check whether that control measure is working effectively. Okay, one such method is inspection. In supervision can also be a method of monitoring whether the control is working or not. For example, SSOW. For PP also, supervision can be a monitoring method. When you're using some equipment, whether that equipment is working effectively, so you may do some calibration or testing. So that is a monitoring method of that equipment. So this monitoring that you're going to do, whether it's supervision or inspection or calibration testing, what is the frequency of this monitoring method? That should be written in your risk assessment. So when it is written in the risk assessment, it dictates that the inspector does that inspection in that particular frequency. So that's why risk assessment is a factor. Presence of vulnerable people, you'd want to inspect more frequently. Enforcement authority has advised, so you'll have to follow his advice. Concerns from previous inspection says that in this particular area, housekeeping is poor. So in the future, you'll be inspecting it more frequently just to see whether your findings of the previous inspection have been implemented and changes have been brought in. Workers' concern, complaints can also be a factor to consider, right? So these are factors to consider when deciding on the frequency of inspection. Some tools required for inspection. No doubt you need an inspector, but for him, this checklist is very useful. So you tell me why a checklist is used during inspection. So that points does not get missed. Okay, very good. It's also a quick reference. Excellent, funny. To not miss any factor. Okay. No important points. All right. It also becomes an immediate record. Okay, good. So you go shopping, you make a shopping list and go now, so that you don't forget. That's simple as using a checklist. Checklists have some advantages and has some disadvantages also. So we will see what they are. This slide says checklists are good tools to ensure the systematic and correct inspection of the workplace takes place. However, there are some merits and demerits. All right. Some advantages and disadvantages. Advantage ensures that all the points that need to be inspected are covered. You don't forget something. When you use checklists, so there are different inspectors doing the inspection. When they use the checklist, then there is a consistent method that can be brought about. It is also a form of written record. Once the checklist is used, it becomes an instant record, evidence that inspection has been carried out. Whereas if you look at the disadvantage, may ignore certain items which are not on the checklist. This is especially when checklists are not updated. You may be using, you can call this a very blinkered approach. Like that horse on the race course has a blinker now. It's not supposed to see all the green, juicy grass on either side of the track. So they put a blinker on its eye. This checklist can also become like that to an inspector, meaning he's only looking at the points mentioned in the checklist. He's not thinking, are there any hazards not adequately controlled, which is not mentioned in the checklist, right? So therefore, it could become a disadvantage. It can be abused, meaning the inspector is sitting at his desk and putting tick mark on the checklist. He's not actually doing the inspection. And if it's not updated also, it will not tell you what the current picture is. So some advantages and disadvantages. Ma'am, while developing checklist, we take all consideration. No, ma'am. Yes, Vijay, you take all consideration. But when did you do this? Probably 3 months back. Okay, something new has been introduced within these last 3 months. But that was missed out, didn't get updated in the checklist. That's the point that they are trying to make, Vijay. If you are updating your checklist, then that's good. All right, thank you, Vijay. Typical points covered in an inspection. So all these things you can inspect. We've already covered this in the 4 P's, if you remember. And moving ahead, safety sampling. We've spoken about safety sampling. It's a useful technique to help organization to concentrate on specific issues or subject at a time. Samples taken at random and results can be interpolated, or we can also say extrapolated within the target or cohort under study. If you remember, safety sampling is you're taking a representative sample. What is the sample reflecting? When you do the inspection of the sample, it tells you what is done well, what is not done well, right? And that may tell you about what is happening in the rest of the population or rest of the data points. Towards, okay, who's going to read this slide? We already discussed what is a safety tour. Somebody please read the slide. Lakshmi, do you want to do that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you, Lakshmi.
Safety tours. A high-profile inspection of a workplace carried out by a team involving senior managers to participate. It may be formal and informal, to raise the profile of health and safety, to demonstrate management interest and commitment, to monitor the workers' behavior. It's a non-routine, unscheduled check.
Okay. So why do you think safety tour should be an unscheduled one?
Things will not be prepared. So whatever it is happening, we can identify immediately.
Okay, Lakshmi. Thank you. So if it's scheduled, everybody's going to get ready, na? With it doesn't tell you the real picture, right? Check ground reality. Okay, like a surprise visit. Correct. Okay, we've spoken about some active monitoring methods, inspections and safety tours and safety sampling. Okay, we also discussed safety surveys, if you remember. Okay, so these are some active monitoring methods. Okay, tell me what is benchmarking before we go to reactive monitoring. What is benchmarking? You can unmute and speak also. Setting a track record. Okay. Best practices adopted by similar organizations. Okay. Standards are being compared. All right. So benchmarking is a method through which you're comparing your health and safety performance with some leaders of the industry. Naturally, you're not comparing yourself with somebody who does not maintain a good standard of health and safety. You're comparing it with leaders of the industry. So when you compare and see if your safety performance is poorer compared to other, organizations in the industry, you're going to see what practices are they following, which is fetching them such fantastic performance, right? You may want to copy or borrow those best practices. Check against good standards. Okay. Setting specifications and standards. All right. Okay. So this is benchmark. So this way, what you're going to do is any best practice developed in other organizations can be borrowed and implemented in your workplace also. Okay, one more active monitoring method is health surveillance. We spoke about health surveillance, if I recall. Can somebody tell me what is health surveillance? Health surveillance, anybody? Checking of the wellness of employees. Periodic medical examination. Very good, Karthik. Yearly health checks of workers. Okay, very good. So you're doing a periodic medical examination. So is it general medical examination, open your mouth, open your eyes kind of medical checks? Is that what we're talking about? No, says, okay, everybody says no. All right. So what are we doing then? I'm sure you'll say it's a specific check. Okay, specific check meaning? Chronic diseases surveillance. All right. Sarang, please unmute and speak to me.
This means some people are regularly used to work on this asbestos material. So periodical check for their health surveillance for this asbestosis disease. In that way, we can have the record of those things. Means we can do the this type of health surveillance to them if there is some this disease find means if there is this disease to someone, then we can get in early stages.
Okay, Sarang. Thank you, Sarang. All right. So, Sarang has given one good example. Asbestos is a hazard that the worker is exposed to. So now in your health surveillance, you're checking his lung capacity. You're checking if he's developed any respiratory disorders due to the exposure to asbestos. So health surveillance is a way of, it is a medical examination, but you're not doing a general medical examination. Rather, you're looking at what is the hazard he's exposed to and what will be the effect on the body. That particular examination is what is carried out. All right. So it could be a blood check because there are certain, biological hazards which reflect in the blood, right? So it can be a blood check. It can even be a skin check. There are some irritants, chemicals which are used in the workplace which cause dermatitis, as kind of a skin infection. So you can do a skin check. You can also do a lung function test, like for any irritants which are inhaled or any gases or vapors which are inhaled and cause respiratory disorders. You can do a lung function test. It may also reflect in X-ray of the chest, right? So these are some specific medical checks that you're doing depending on what is the hazard that the worker is exposed to. Eye check, all right. See, this eye check, if it is it could also become the prerequisite for work that is done by the worker. For example, a driver has to have a good vision, all right? But that is more like a competence check. It's not really a health surveillance, okay? But when you do a when you start doing the health surveillance, you would usually start even before the worker is being exposed to that hazard. Okay, this is the first time he's entering your workplace, right? This is the first time he's going to do the job. So you can treat it as a pre-employment medical examination, no doubt about it. So when you somebody saying something, eye test is also a health surveillance. Hearing impairment due to high levels of noise, correct? Correct. Karthik, I'm not saying that it's not a health surveillance, but what I'm saying is that when you do a pre-employment medical examination, that could become a kind of a competence check also, like a medical fitness check for a driver, medical fitness for loader, manual labor, because if his back is already injured, he already has some back pain, back injury, and then you put him on manual labor, it's going to become worse, isn't it? So you may put him on some other job, right? So in this case, there's no question of him being affected by manual handling because you never put him on manual handling task, right? But health surveillance is also what is happening in his body after 6 months, after 12 months, because of the hazard he's exposed to, right? Also, what I wanted to say is, thanks, Karthik. So also what I wanted to say is, well, let's say that he's medically fit and everything, all right? But even if he's medically fit, it's a good idea to have the data of his health before he's put into the job. Or, you know what I mean? I have some data about what is his health condition right now. In fact, he's not even exposed to the hazard as yet. This is called as baseline data. Now, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do the medical examination or part of the health surveillance even before he started getting exposed to that hazard? Because let's say that you're going to do health surveillance after 6 months or after 12 months. Let's take the example of noise. Okay, he joined today. From today onwards, he's being exposed to noise. After 6 months, after 12 months, you are doing the health surveillance of like an audiometry test you're doing. And how will you know after 6 months whether the hearing has deteriorated or not? I'm not talking about fit to work. Okay, Vasu, just listen to the question. If you had not done the health surveillance on day 1 of exposure, let's say you're doing on the 6th month, you're doing the audiometry test, how will you know whether his hearing capacity has deteriorated or is it the same? How will you know that? You don't have a data to compare with, na? You understood what I'm trying to say? Okay, good. Okay, so that's why you're collecting that baseline data. What do I mean by baseline data? Even before he's exposed to the hazard or at the time when he's first getting exposed to this hazard, you're collecting the data about his health so that you have something to compare with after 6 months or 12 months. Only then you will know whether the health is deteriorated or it's the same, right? Some organizations, as part of health surveillance, they also do medical checks at the time of exit, meaning the worker is leaving the organization. So at the time of exit, a medical check is done. Why do you think this is practiced by some organizations? Any thoughts? Why do you think this medical examination is done even when the worker is leaving the work site? He's quitting the company. But he's quitting the company, no, Vasu. Why are you bothered about his health? Sairam, for future study, Lakshmi, okay? All right. Think and tell me, is it possible that the worker has left your organization in good health, but he's exposed to that hazard in the next organization that he's working for, but filing a civil case against your organization? You're the previous employer. He's filing a civil case against you, saying that the exposure happened in your organization and you don't have any data to prove, right? So this could be a reason why some organizations at the time of exit, they do the health surveillance and maintain that record for some time to prevent, to avoid any such kind of claims or false civil claims. Medical docs will their map. I don't quite understand your question or whatever you're saying. To prevent blame on previous organization. Okay. Yeah, reports will be maintained. Correct, Vijay. Yeah, correct, Vijay. All right, so that's about health surveillance. But remember, when you're doing health surveillance, how does it become an active monitoring method? When you're doing health surveillance, how does it become an active monitoring method? In a previous class, we discussed. Do you remember? Vasu, what is SOP, Vasu? Unmute and speak, please.
Ma'am, it may be some organizations will say that it's a legal requirement that a periodical medical surveillance should be done.
Okay,
it will be a legal requirement.
I'm not asking asking why should health surveillance be done? Okay, and what I'm asking is, how does health surveillance become an active monitoring method? Okay, at the beginning stage itself, we will identify and reduce the likelihood. Okay, Karthik, very good. Checking before he gets completely ill. Okay, Shobit, very good. Okay, so here, when you do a periodic check, you can see that the deterioration has started. Okay, he's not completely, affected yet, but some deterioration is observed during your health surveillance periodic checks, right? At that time, you're able to realize that probably the control, in fact, Lakshmi, I think, made this point in the last class. The probably that the control measures that you have implemented is not adequate or efficient or not working at all, right? That's why his health is deteriorating, isn't it? So you're able to go back and correct your control measures. That's how it is becoming an active monitoring method. Okay, so we've spoken about some active monitoring methods. Now let's go to reactive monitoring. The reports generated from reactive monitoring denotes the failure of the system and the ineffectiveness of the control measures. Correct. In short, reactive monitoring measures help to identify areas of weakness, and also you're able to learn some useful lessons. We spoke about what is reactive monitoring yesterday. You're using the data, you're using statistics about and these data for your reactive monitoring methods. Voice is not audible. Oh, I was saying, what is reactive monitoring? You're using accident data about accidents, illnesses, and near misses. You're analyzing this data to identify areas of concern, right? And but of course, once area of concern is identified, you're going to take some corrective action. But when is corrective action taken? After things have gone wrong. That's why it's called reactive, I said. And this slide gives you some examples of reactive monitoring that you can do. Whether it's accidents or dangerous occurrence, near miss, ill health, and all that. Okay, so here there is mention about accident, near miss, and dangerous occurrence, ill health also. So why don't we talk about that? All right. Can somebody tell me what is an accident? Slide is not changing, is it, Vijay? Okay. Please ensure what, Vijay? Vijay, I am changing the slide, but you're not able to see it. So when you tell me, only then I know that you're not able to see the slide. Okay? So once you tell me that you're not able to see the slide, I need to stop sharing and start sharing again. All right. So what was my question? What's an accident? Now tell me, Vijay, are you able to see the slide? Okay, thank you. Undesired, unexpected event resulting in injury, loss, property damage, says Prashi. Okay. Okay, good. Unplanned, unwanted event which leads to injury, damage, or loss. Okay, very good, Kaleem. All right. Okay, so let's, as Prashil and Kaleem has said, that it's an event. Okay, it's an incident. It's an event. What did you plan for it? No, it was unplanned. Do you want it? No, it's an undesired event. Okay, what did it lead to? It led to somebody getting injured and or property has got damaged. Okay, such an event is called as accident. I hope your, I think in the next topic, accident definition and all is given, if I'm not wrong. Okay. All right, but just listen to me right now. So this is an accident. Can somebody tell me what is a near miss? What is a near miss? Are you able to hear me? Okay. An incident that happened but no damage, but has the potential to do so. Okay. Okay. Incident which didn't cause injury. All right. Activity which has potential to harm. Okay. Unplanned event that has potential cause. Okay. All right. Okay. Good. No loss, no injury. All right. So this is also an unplanned event, an undesired event, but did not result in somebody getting harmed, did not result in property damage. So what's the problem here? It had the potential to do so. Probably some distance prevented it from becoming an accident. Probably some time prevented it from becoming an accident, or some kind of a luck prevented it from becoming an accident, right? But this is also very much an event that happened, and it had the potential to become an accident, but did not happen so. All right. Now, here, many of you are using the word event that had the potential to cause harm, an event which had the potential to become an accident. But this potential word we've heard somewhere else. Where have we heard this word potential? Which term's definition had potential in it? Okay, has it. So can I say that near miss is a hazard? No, no, no. Okay. Okay. So what's the difference then? Somebody can unmute and speak. That's also fine if it's difficult to type. Karthik says there will be ill health or injury. What do you mean, Karthik? Okay, you don't mean it. All right, Karthik. Rashil says hazard can give rise to near miss or accident. Correct, but that's not exactly answering my question. In the definition of near miss, there is a word potential. Hazard also, it has potential in it. So do you think near miss is potential? No, you all said no. Okay, so what is it then? Near miss will not result injury. Okay. Rahul, you're saying yes for what? But hazard will result in injury, ill health. Okay. Actually says may or may not. Arun says incident has happened but not resulted in injury. Okay, Arun. All right. Hazard. When I say hazard, is it an event or is it a thing? Very good. So now you say hazard is the thing which is going to cause harm. Near miss, is it an event or the thing? Event. So is there a difference between, yeah, correct. So is there a difference between thing that is causing harm and an event which resulted in harm or did not result in harm in this case? Is there a difference between the thing that has caused harm and the event? Right. Correct. So even though both these definitions have the word potential in it, hazard is the thing which has caused harm or not has caused harm, which has the potential to cause harm, and near miss is an event, meaning somebody fell down but did not get harmed. All right. The thing from height fell down but did not fall on somebody's head. So it fell from height. So that's an event, right? That is what my yes means. Oh, I see, Rahul. I'm supposed to understand that. Okay, Rahul. Prashil says consequence of the hazard. What do you mean, Prashil? Before I say yes or no, what do you mean, Prashil?
Hazard can has a potential to lead to an accident or near miss. So it's a consequence of the hazardous event which can lead to an accident.
So when we generally say consequence, we are talking about what that hazard can cause as harm. Correct? But in the near miss definition, the harm has not happened now. Or probably you're right when you say it had the potential to cause that consequence. Okay, Prashi. So we've spoken about what is accident and what is near miss. I think you are very much clear about that. Let's also talk about dangerous occurrence. Now, dangerous occurrence is an event that is reportable. Just remember that, these three words. Dangerous occurrence is an event that is reportable. Let's take an example and understand this. An excavation activity was going on, but it was, the ground has been excavated. Let's say people were on a break. So there was nobody inside the excavation. No equipment was also inside the excavation. But the sides of the excavation collapsed. The soil collapsed. Okay. What will you call this? What will you call this event as? Why will you call it dangerous occurrence, yeah? Funny and Sarah. Arun says incident. Sarang says as it did not cause injury. If it did not cause injury, isn't it called a near miss? Sarang, please unmute and speak to me. If it did not cause an injury, we just said it's called a near miss.
Actually, ma'am, injury is not caused, but the property damage it has caused.
I said there is no equipment there. Nothing got damaged now.
Okay.
So will you call it a near miss?
Yes, we can call it near miss then.
Okay, thank you, Sarang. Pani, tell me why you called it dangerous occurrence.
My reason was also same. So that's
Same?
Yes.
Okay. Now you both were correct. It is a dangerous occurrence, though you were not able to tell why it was a dangerous occurrence. Okay. So why is it a dangerous occurrence? Because the law says, the enforcement authority says, such an event has to be reported. In your workplace, this no doubt is a near miss, but the law says such an event has to be reported. What is this event? Soil collapse. Like that, there are some events. And when a fire occurs in the workplace, it could be a near miss, meaning nobody got injured, no property damage happened. But yet, law says you have to report that. Then that is called as a dangerous occurrence. You can't simply call it a near miss and not report it to the enforcement authority. You'll get into trouble later. All right? Why? Because the law says a dangerous occurrence is some examples I can give you, what I know. Soil collapse, fire, lifting equipment failure, scaffold collapse, passenger lifting equipment failure, right? So these are some examples of dangerous occurrence. So what do I mean by dangerous occurrences? Something that has to be reported to enforcement authorities. It could be even a near miss, but if law says that thing has to be reported to me, then you have to report it. You can't simply call it a near miss and close, and not report it to the enforcement authority. Collapse of a crane. Yeah, crane is a lifting equipment failure. is correct, Prashi. That's a dangerous occurrence. All right, so you know what is accident, what is near miss, what's a dangerous occurrence. All right. While we are talking about this, I also want, of course, ill health. Any event, any exposure to a hazard which resulted in a disease or a disorder being developed, that is called as ill health. While we are talking about this, I also want to particularly talk about what are some events that have to be reported to an enforcement authority. Okay, it is there somewhere in the next topics, but anyway, we'll discuss it now. What are some events that have to be reported to the enforcement authority? All right. One, will you report fatalities, meaning deaths? Will you report? Yes. Okay. So one is fatality or death. Two, will you have to report major injuries? Yes. Okay. Three, lost time injuries. Can somebody define lost time injury?
Lost time injuries are injuries which have resulted in the workplace, and because of it, the worker was unable to resume duties. He resumed duties after 48 hours or maybe after that. So those injuries are reported to the statutory bodies.
Okay, Prashi. Thank you very much. So let's say that this is not a fatality. It's not even a major injury, but he could not perform his normal duties for a certain period of time. What is that certain period of time? Your law or your enforcement authority would have stipulated what is that certain period of time. Now, Prashil gave an example of 48 hours. In India, lost time injury is calculated for 48 hours, meaning a person is not able to come back to work and perform his normal duties because of an injury that he suffered in the workplace. For more than 48 hours, he's not able to, perform his normal duties. Then that comes under lost time injury. He need not have got treatment in the hospital. All right, it need not have been a major injury, but yet he's not able to perform tasks for a certain period of time. Let's also take another example. The worker came to work, but could not continue doing his work for a certain period of time. That is also considered as lost time injury, right? So, what is this period of time? You can refer your legislation. Let's ask Khalid. Khalid, in Saudi, what is the law saying in terms of the period of time calculated for lost time injury?
The same, ma'am. It is 48 hours.
48 hours? Okay.
Yes, it is.
In some countries, it could be 3 days. Some type of even injuries are calculated for 7 days, right? It depends upon what your loss is. So we were talking about what kind of events have to be reported to the enforcement authority. One is fatality, two, major injury, three, lost time injuries. Four, we've already discussed about dangerous occurrences. That's also something which is reportable. And five, certain ill health, certain diseases. Okay. Again, a list of diseases that, if occurs, has to be reported. That list is given by your enforcement authority. Something like asbestosis and silicosis, leptospirosis. These are some examples. Okay, so we'll just quickly finish with the reactive monitoring, and then we can discuss about what I wanted to discuss. Using incident data statistics, data can be converted into trends. We spoke about trends and patterns the other day. The slide speaks about that. Data can be converted into trends, which can tell the organization whether the number of accidents are showing an upward or a downward trend, meaning increasing or decreasing trend. Or data can also generate some hotspots. Hotspots are patterns, if you remember. So as to know what areas of the organization require specific management attention so as to improve the performance. Okay. The data collected needs to be converted into certain indices to enable meaningful comparison. There are different indices that industries generate for comparison. One among them is the accident incidence rate. Who remembers when we spoke about indicators used to assess safety culture? when we were talking about the topic indicators used to assess safety culture, we spoke about the difference between number of accidents and accident incidence rate. Who remembers that? Which was a better data to use, number of accidents or accident incidence rate? Right, everybody agrees rate was a better data to use. We use some calculation also for accident incidence rate. Do you remember the formula? It is there in your book also. Right, so this is the formula. Okay, so accidents incidence rate is number of accidents or number of people injured in that given period of time divided by the average number of people employed in your organization during that given period of time multiplied by 1,000. It can be multiplied by 1,000 or 100,000 or 100, whichever it is. But the data that you're comparing it with should also be multiplied by the same number. Okay. Data on incidents assist in analyzing trends and patterns. Yeah, we know that. Benefits of collecting near-miss data. Is there any use in collecting near-miss data? What is the main or the obvious use of collecting near-miss data? To prevent accidents. Okay. So, near misses can tell you what could go wrong in the future, right? It happened, but did not result in accidents. But from that near miss, you're able to understand how it could have resulted in an accident. So if you take corrective action, you're able to prevent that future accident. Okay, good. Right. I'm going to stop here because tomorrow I want to especially discuss the accident triangle to understand why we should look at near misses. All right, but I'm not going to do it today. We'll do it tomorrow. So remind me to explain to you about accident triangle. All right. So violence at work. So the question is, any incident